Welcome to Cross Platform Podcast, where we discuss how to solve productivity problems across platforms. I'm Augusto Pinaud,
And I'm Art Gelwicks.
and we are on the news of the week. And well, we have three news that we're going to share. The first one is hybrid work. It's all about flexibility and trust, not location. And we are trying to come back to the offices, and the offices are trying to pull back, and Apple has picked a date, and all the big people are picking dates. But we are finally coming to the realization that we are not going back to the office full time. We're now going to be on this hybrid mode. And we have discussed here on the show that, we talk about our experience in the past about being semi nomad, and moving from
Mhm.
office to office and cubicle to cubicle. And that's what is going to happen. We are going more into a hybrid work arrangement than full time arrangement. Few people are going to end up going to the office 5 days a week, 9 to 5 as we used to. It's going to be more of this hybrid. You go for meetings and you go for stuff. And the article make the point. It's about flexibility. It's about trust. And I don't know if most of the organizations are ready for both, for the flexibility and the trust. What I see is in a lot of organizations is okay, we already let you be 2 years working at home because we did not have any other choice, but now you need to come back to what we had before because we need to get back to control. And I don't know how that's going to work well for many organizations. And we
Yeah,
are going to see, I think, even a worse scramble of people than what we have seen.
it was an interesting article that I found here in CMS Wire because they do approach what I think is the more critical part of the equation. I mean, as you mentioned, businesses are now trying to draw people back into the offices, not so much for improvement in productivity because they can't justify that particular argument. For the most part, it's they have an investment in physical infrastructure and they have an investment in a corporate hierarchy that can't support anything besides direct visible supervision. Matter of fact, they have, in many cases, bloated hierarchies that there isn't really a contribution to work efforts from the middle management on up. They're just kind of there. So when we look at this hybrid work, and this the term worries me a little bit because I've seen a lot of reference around hybrid work. Well, hybrid work is coming to say come into the office 2 days a week, come into the office 3 days a week. Well, that's not the same thing as what we're talking about here. That's just a way to placate the mindset and say, oh, well, we're letting you work from home at times. It shouldn't be a conversation as to what or where. It is a trust thing. If you are not in someplace where I can see you, do I trust you to deliver on the work that you have committed to doing? And it's not a degrees of trust. It's not a, shades of gray. It's a yes or no. I either trust you or I don't. Do I trust you to find a place to be able to do the work? Yes or no. And when we have organizations who are saying, oh, well, you need to be in the office 3 days a week, we don't trust you. We're gonna give in a little bit to let you feel like we trust you, but we actually don't. And I think we've seen in the past just a couple of weeks with the sudden spike in fuel prices again. If somebody has to start commuting again, well, do the math, figure out what it costs to drive back and forth. That's not included in compensation. So this trust and organizational trust has to start treating the people who in work anywhere, anytime mindsets as adults rather than as, kindergartners that need to be in a classroom. So I thought it was an interesting take on the idea. I don't know that it's necessarily going to be a comfortable one for those who are trying to push the idea of hybrid work. I have become a very strong advocate that, yeah, there's some times when you get together, but those should be the exception to the rule. Those should be high value, high impact situations. if you're going to get 5 people together in a room to meet for an hour, there better be a reason to burn 10 hours worth of productivity, because that's basically what you're doing for that 1 hour meeting.
Yeah. That's
So the second piece of news we had this week, and this is these two are in your area, Gusto, so I'm just going to comment and let you jump in. Apple released a whole bunch of stuff again. This was this a named event? I missed whether it had a name or not.
it was. It's all about performance or performance. I forgot the name.
So one of the big things that I saw the article's talking about is this idea of the Mac Pad, or I'll put that in air quotes, the Mac Pad, moving closer and closer to the iPad being a laptop replacement. With, for example, the iPad Air upgrades that are coming out and things like that. So what do you think about that? I know you're a hardcore iPad guy, but is Apple making the right moves to make something like that happen?
I about the article. Well, that's what they did with the iPad Pro. I mean, the iPad Pro they're trying to say that because now they put the M1, that is the same chipset that they put on the Macs. Now they're getting there. They did that with the Pro already last year. So chipset wise, they have it. What they have is a different operating system. As of today, they have not allowed you to install Mac applications into the iPads. You can install some or many iPad applications in the Mac. That's already, it's happening, and it's quite interesting and works really well. So is that a MacBook? No, and I think Apple is trying to make that very, very clear. Is the iPad ridiculously powerful? Yes, it is. It's trying to compete with the Mac and be a Mac replacement? No. I think what Apple is doing, and it show on the next news about the power, about the new machines and the new chipsets, it's really segment their markets. Okay, so we have now the MacBooks or the MacBook Air, and the MacBook Air fits a specific segment. And then we have the iPads Air, and the iPads Pro. And the iPad Air, they're really pushing for that person who needs a small portable machine that they will be able to do a lot of things, but mostly not Mac related things. And you will have the touchscreen, and you will be able to do art, and you will be able to do other things. And then they have the Pro lines. And one of the things on the news article, new one, is the new machine they released. They got their Mac Mini and make it really a beast. They call it the Mac Studio. And it is a beast. And they came with a 27-inch monitor with the camera, and I think it's a 12 megapixel camera that can follow you and all that. So yes, they are bringing strong features that they introduce in the iPad to their Mac line and vice versa. But as of today, Apple seems to have zero interest into mixing. And that's something that they have done relatively well for many number of years. The story says that when Apple brought Steve Jobs back, Steve Jobs created a quadrant and said, this is what we need. This is the home level. This is the pro level. This is the home level. This is the pro level. And that's it. We don't need to have. You need to have a clear distinction between that. So when the person come home or come to the store and is going to order a machine, there are no doubts what are their needs. And the new iPad prove it. The iPad Air 5 can only do up to 250 gigabytes. I understand that sounds like a lot, and maybe a lot for many people. But if you want to go into the Pro, well, the Pro gets some to 2 terabytes. Okay, it has more memory RAM. So you can look into the comparison and say, okay, which is what I need? I need this machine, or no, I have higher requirements and I need this other machine. And it's the same thing when you go to their line. The MacBook Air, it's a non-Pro version, but there is not 7 MacBook Airs. There is the MacBook Air. When you go to the Pro line is when you find now the 13 model, the 14, the 16, because now you're aiming to different segments. And same thing with their desktops. They have the Mac Mini. Mac Mini is what most people will have, or the iMac if you want the monitor integrated into that. But if you really are going to do the Pro, now you have the new Mac Studio, you have the MacBook Pro or the Mac Pro, and they really make a distinction of that. And the distinction, for example, when you look at the MacBook Air, okay, and you look into price, the MacBook Air is start at $1,000 or $999. Okay, when you look at the Mac at the Pro line, okay, their basic Pro line is $1,300 or $1,299. There is a 300. It's a 30% increase.
Yeah.
Okay. If you want this, there's 33% more. They are making a clear distinction between those two machines. And you will see the same thing on the iPad line that they are doing. They want to really make that distinction between the Pro and the non-Pro version of that. And I think they're doing a really good job.
Yeah, I have to give them props on that. Apple has always kept their product lines relatively simple. I mean, there's always some question between, various levels of devices and things like that, but nothing like the mess that other companies create with their product lines. Looking at you, Samsung. So when you look at something like the iPad Air that they updated, goes on sale in 64 gig, 256 gig configurations, starts at $599. It's a pretty straightforward idea. I'm going to buy an iPad Air. That's it right there. Go get it. Not a big conversation. That type of a thing, I think, will keep it at the top of the pile. I mean, when you look at other comparable or equivalent hardware to say, okay, where am I going to put my money? Well, I'm going to get an iPad instead of getting an Android-based tablet, even with the updates that we're seeing now within Android 12L to encourage tablet usage. But I still struggle a little bit for the people who, again, are trying to create that cross-platform system. How do they make that decision between, when they have limited dollars, should I get an iPad or should I get a MacBook? Is there a clear yes or no series of questions or boxes you could tick that would tip you one way or the other? Or is it really a case-by-case basis?
The answer is simple. Do you need a piece of software that can only run in macOS? Yes or no?
Okay. So it's not dependent on the hardware itself. It's the needs that you have to identify in advance and then say, can you do this on that device?
Correct. So, for example, my son came 2 days ago, okay, and started making his argument why I need to buy him a MacBook or a PC. Okay. Let's just start saying on record on the show it's not happening, okay? But he came and I said, okay, why? He had an iPad. Okay, so why? Well, because I want to use this software he play a game called Roblox, and he wants to download Roblox Creator. And Roblox Creator only works on Mac or PC. So in his argument, he needs a Mac or a PC so he can do whatever he wants to do with the game. That's where the need is. It's not anymore, and that's something that Apple is doing, in my opinion, really, really well. When, I've been iPad only since 2012. But at 2012, for me to be iPad only, I needed to make certain sacrifices, right? And there were things that I needed to work around in order for me to be iPad only. The machine was significantly underpowered in comparison to a MacBook that I could buy. Apple, really quietly, okay, it's been bringing both machines to the same level. Okay? Processing and speed and all that, there is no difference between a new MacBook Air and a MacBook. And an iPad. Okay. The difference now is what you run and what you use this for. Oh, do you want to play with the pen? Do you want to use the pen? Do you want to be more artistic? Go for the iPad. Okay. No, I want a more traditional mouse. And I want to be able to run certain products that doesn't exist on the iPad, then goes. Even Apple has been so clever so far, okay, that if you buy a MacBook, okay, you can run many of the applications of the iPad. They don't have the touch screen. You need to use the mouse. I get it. But you have that. And I think it's a matter of time. Okay. And I'm done thinking it's going to be a lot where you are going to have really full compatibility back and forward, where you can turn your iPad and now get from the MacBook, from the Mac store, and download into your iPad. Capability wise is there.
That's what I think is interesting. And I think Apple is doing it well. Microsoft, not so much. What we're seeing is this growth and pull of mobile-based applications into desktop systems because the mobile platform is the more limited of the two platforms from a power and literally from an operating system standpoint. So that when we talk about cross-platform capability, to be able to use the same app on your phone, your tablet, and your desktop,
it is so powerful.
Is extremely compelling, and not have to, as part of that sequence, interject in a website to be able to interface with the data, which is what you have to do in so many cases when you get to the desktop level. So, and we're going to talk about in our next segment about progressive web apps, which kind of upends this whole conversation.
Yeah, and but for example, in the iPad, if you want to edit video, at the beginning that was impossible. Okay, it was the first iPad. Forget about it. I mean, let's ignore the fact that it was not a software. The machine was not powerful enough. But with the M1, you can use, not only there are many, and do it in the same level or even easier with the pencil to select than what you will do it on the Mac.
So yeah, the video editing software I use from the same company, but I have their mobile version as well as their desktop version, and both work extremely well. The tablet version is the mobile version. Problem is my tablet is actually underpowered as compared to my phone. So it just makes more sense to do the editing on the phone. But that's still two different applications. And as a software developer, to have to build and support two entirely different applications is just double work. If I get to a point of where I can build an application and it works everywhere and it works consistently and well everywhere, I've made my life easier as a developer, but I've also given myself the opportunity to create a more powerful solution because I can dedicate my resources into that singular implementation. So
where I think, and this is 100% guesstimate, this is, I don't have, Tim doesn't call me and share his ideas, but where I think this is, Apple is going is soon. Soon, I'm talking less than 5 years. Okay, we are going to be able to grab a device and being invisible. And they have been working in this for a long while. Okay, when people ask me why the iPad, because I can grab any iPad or my phone, okay, and everything is there. Everything is synchronized. And they have been working to get that working on the Mac. So it's still not as solid as is on the iPad, but it is there. Okay, there are many things that if I pull a MacBook right now, I will be find there that is on my iPads and etc. So that is really powerful. And they have been already synchronizing things, extending from the iPad or from the Mac to the iPad to use the iPad as a second screen. It is so easy. Bake it. I don't need to do anything. It works like a charm. I can even go and share my keyboard and my mouse on the MacBook to the iPad. So all that is baked already on the system. No need to install anything new. So the indication is soon you will be able to grab a device and will be completely invisible for you what you're using, and will be a matter of what is your like, because there is different. Okay, the iPad, the weight on the computer on a MacBook Air and a MacBook Pro, okay, the weight of the computer is on the bottom. With you talk to the iPad, even with the Magic Keyboard, okay, the weight is on the back. So that changed for your lifestyle. But what I think they're doing really cool, or they seems to be directing to really cool, is we are not going to slow you down processing wise. We are going to let you pick what is the style that you like to work.
And I think that's probably the most important piece, is the fact that they are standardizing and other companies need to work around this, standardizing the internals so that you are not sacrificing capability based on form factor.
Correct.
And it's form factor that makes the final determination as to which one you want to utilize for where you're going to be utilizing it. If I'm in a field environment, if I'm highly mobile, I'm going to want something that's lightweight, that's streamlined, that's efficient.
Mhm.
Up until this point, we have compromised power to get, reduced weight and better battery consumption. Well, I think we're getting to the point now where we don't have to compromise anymore. We have to start looking at, maybe it's price point now, because I know at the price point I can get a very capable device, or at a higher price point I get even more capable. Where's the capability lie that I actually need? So it's good to see the way Apple has brought this stuff out, that they are sticking to their guns, that they are moving through this. I'm not normally an Apple advocate, but I think being consistent to your strategy for people who
And
are
being consistent to your strength.
true. If you are trying to put together your own cross-platform environment, predictability in a company's hardware plans and software plans makes that life easier. If you don't know where they're going, it's very difficult to make a decision on investing hard-earned money into hardware and software. But if they've been consistent and they continue to be consistent, it does make that investment much more comfortable. So,
Well, and I can tell you this. I had a client who called me some weeks back because he loved his Android phone. Okay, but all the family has moved to iPhones, iPads. He even got at work an iPad that he need to use, and he was really frustrated. He called me really frustrated and said, "Fine, let's talk about an iPhone. I may need to change." And we had the argument: what is what you need to change, and what is, because you can stay cross-platform without any issues, but you need to understand what are the problems. What is pushing you to decide this? Okay, and funny enough, he did not change the phone at the end. He said, "Well, the problem is one of the problems. I want to be able to track my family, and and now they're all on iPhones. So you can track it on the iPad. When you don't have the iPad, no, I don't. I have the iPad, but then my wife don't see my phone." And I say, "Well, how about we buy, an AirTag, tag it to your phone. Now she can see you because you're going to be there on the phone. So it's going to be full data." So there are many ways to work into this for the cross-platform view. But what is important is understand where you are. As Samsung is really tidying up with Windows, so you get your Chrome device or your Google device, and it will going to work beautifully into your Windows. Well, Mac has been doing this for a while. So as you go and mix and mingle, think on those things, and yeah, do I think on this event they are announcing incredible things? Yes. Apple right now has a chipset that is, at least according to Intel, or the articles I have written on Intel, it's at least 12 months ahead of Intel. Okay. But the problem is that chipset is already 12 months old. Okay. So it is not really 12 months. We're talking about 24 months ahead after that. And in technology, that is years light. When a company like Intel come to the world and said, we think we are at least 2023 to catch up with the M1, it's scary.
It's problematic, and it makes it difficult to make purchasing decisions and investments, especially when you look at hardware that has a limited lifespan. It's one of the reasons why Chromebooks are popular, because you have that extended lifespan. You have phone hardware now where companies like Samsung are saying, look, we're going to support it for 4 years. Phone vendors, why would you possibly want to support something for 4 years if you want them to buy a new thing every 2 years? Well, they've started to realize that people are going to hold on to them regardless. So if we want them to invest in a device, we've got to make it so that they buy our device, regardless of how quickly they flip it over. So this is, again, part of that continuing conversation. We always say that it doesn't really matter the hardware or the software. What matters is you understand what you need.
Correct.
Taking the time to understand what your needs are, defining those clearly, and then using that as the yardstick will help you to make confident and consistent decisions in the platform that you're assembling for yourself.
Yeah. And with this, follow us where you like to listen to podcasts, like us or subscribe to us, and leave us a review. You can also interact with us in personalproductivity.club.
Mm-hmm.
We are Augusto Pinaud and Art Gelwicks, and see you next time from your favorite device.